And the nurse, however, tried to get her to hold me. And this little story just breaks my heart every time I think about it. That she saw my little hand reach out. And I can't believe she told me this. She saw my little hand reach out towards her and she turned away. She could not bring herself to hold me because she knew she wouldn't be able to give me up if she did that. And she knew what she had to do. So that I just, I have like this cinematic vision. So I just picture it so vividly, this little child's hand reaching out and her just not going there. Did it make me angry? Not really. It just kind of, there's flickers of grief with that. But I can't possibly hold it against her because once I found her, she was all in. So and Mary, I've read through a bunch more letters that I found. I have things a bit scattered, and I found a bunch more letters that she sent me or attempted to send me. Some of them I knew I received. Some of them were drafts that she just kept, and I found them after she died. And I'm like, oh my God, I was so loved by this woman that it's staggering to me how I only absorbed a certain percentage of it. Like, I read these letters now and I'm like, this woman she's just mother love. She's just pouring it all out. So touching. She sent me a note on the day of her mother's birthday. So the note just says, "Today is your grandmother's birthday. You have been in my mind and my heart just a bit more than usual. And I'm thinking, what a comfort and a joy to know this amazing woman. And I will bet a silver star that I'm just going to say her name, that our Beatrice is thinking that very exact same thing." So on my grandmother's birthday, she's thinking about me. Is at another point, she was struck by how much I reminded her of her own mother. And she would say, I would be standing at the kitchen sink and it would catch her off guard because I look so much like her mom. And she sent me some linens. Try to find that note. She sent me some linens just saying that out of we three, meaning my half sister, my mom, and me, that I was the most like B, and that I would be the one most likely to appreciate these gorgeous hand embroidered linens that B made. That I just, it just, was so, I don't know, touching. What can I say? She just would reach out with these little gifts, little trinkets, little things to just support me in ways that I just didn't even really appreciate as much. I mean, I know I appreciated them when they happened, but I'm appreciating them even more now. I guess that she's not here, but she is. I still have these little mama love letters, really, She just was so loving. So that's one connection, and I'm being very dry-eyed right now. But
do you want to talk about others? This is a good one.
Yeah, I know.
We need to spend time here.
Yeah.
I love hearing about your connection to your birth mother.
Yeah, I know. It was special. It really was.
And so I guess that's why I'm going to say maybe you shouldn't move on.
Yeah, move on so quickly.
She is worth being here for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I just adored her.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like she spent a number of years just absolutely, you were in the forefront of her thoughts, and she never forgot, and she never just brushed it off. And, these, maybe the trinkets and things that came later after you guys met
Mm-hmm.
were kind of like, this is how she probably always would have been with you.
Right. Right.
And um, it is very touching to hear her letters to you and her words to you, because, not everybody gets that part. And definitely your story is full of these wonderful parts that I think, you know, with some stories are definitely missing, but
Yeah. I mean, gosh, this is one thing I don't take for granted
yeah,
is that I did get this, this
yeah.
payoff.
Mhm.
Really. And that sounds kind of crass, but my earlier life was really not easy.
No.
And to have this, like I alluded to Oz, the color
Mhm.
back in my life, to have this mother love in my life
Mhm.
was an amazing gift. And, you know, did it heal everything? No, because it's up to me to work on some of that stuff. And I'm still working on it. There's a lot of scar tissue um, that's just going to be there. So how do I live around it?
Right.
That's the way, that's the trick. And even now with her, like in the back of my mind, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I don't think she'd be so proud of me right now. Or, oh, let's try to make her a little prouder. Let's just change this behavior.
Well, can
You
I
know,
say that just by getting to know you a little bit more since we've been doing this podcast, I would say that she would absolutely be proud of you, especially doing what you do all the time. And you are one of the most selfless people I've ever met. And she would
ugh,
absolutely be so proud of you and what you are doing in your life. With being vague here,
yeah, no,
you
that's
know,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, you are a
Well,
very strong person.
yeah, it's so funny because, when you live with yourself and you have your own self talk going on, it's not always so pretty.
Right.
So,
I get it.
yeah. So I am my own biggest critic, but I think that's okay because it does at least keep me in line a little bit. I
Oh,
self parent. That's what I started calling it before I met her when I was in my mid 20s. I'm like, okay, I need to self parent to just try to develop as a human being because I just needed to. I just had to be my own parent.
well, do you
So
find yourself seeing qualities in yourself that you saw in her once you got to know her?
yes, and hey, none of us is saints. We all have our quirks,
Right.
and we definitely share some of the same quirks. It's almost crazy. Like she just was obsessed with certain things, crafting, reading, all sewing, all of these things. And she would cut things out from newspapers and magazines and file them like, I'm going to do this someday. And,
Mhm.
and she'd never do it. And I'm like, oh God, I have a whole house full of that kind of thing.
Right.
Like I'm going to do that someday. So it takes a lot of discipline for me to complete something. And when I do, I'm like, oh, that's a win.
Mm.
That's a huge win. So just the having the imagination to want to be able to do some things. And she even told me when she was ruminating about that, because I don't think she was necessarily proud of it. Like she had gobs and gobs of fabric and what have you, um, that just never got sewn into anything. She mentioned that she almost felt her childhood was too good. Like she never learned how to self direct, that her parents just accepted her for who she was and she could just do whatever she wanted as long as she wasn't getting in trouble. And I'm like, isn't that interesting?
Hmm.
Like, she just didn't know how to plan. She never learned how to plan anything really. That was her take on it. I mean, I'm sure she did know how to plan because she raised some children, and I'm sure she figured some things out more than she admitted. But yeah, so there were definitely traits. Our laugh was pretty close to the same. Some of our expressions, um, family members now are like, "Oh my God, you just did a Mary," you just did a Mary. So, uh, anyhow, so the connection with her, she was disabled and rarely left the house, but she found a way with the help of a half sibling to come out, get on an airplane, travel to my wedding, and get home in one piece. And it was almost, there's just such beautiful pictures from that. I'm no longer married, so there's that. But that wedding was awesome.
Well,
It really was. It really was.
that's a different episode, everyone.
Yeah, no, that's not even. It's a different topic
Probably.
altogether.
Yeah, we're not probably
We're
ever
not going to cover that.
but refer to it maybe.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I would personally love to see those photos, but
Yeah.
we won't be
Yeah.
able to share those with everyone else, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
do you think that now, I'm sorry, she was one of 5 children?
no, she was one of 2 children. So it was her brother who was killed in the car accident. So she was it. She and her dad.
Okay.
It was my father who was actually one of 6 children. Everybody's quoting and all this stuff that he was one of 5, but he was one of 6.
Okay. No, maybe people didn't understand basic math at the time. But,
Right. Oh, we forgot about,
what problem?
forgot about Joe. We always forget about Joe.
Right. Come on.
Yeah. The youngest always gets left behind. Whatever.
No, well, yeah, I know about that.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So birth order wise, remind me one more time. She had other children. Did you say there was one before you?
Yes.
Okay.
So she was married to someone who, now my accounting of this is probably going to be untrue, but I don't know that it matters. I think what matters more or less is what we choose to remember.
Okay.
And that guides us right now in the present.
Sure.
So, what I recall is that she married somebody who had a bunch of kids from a previous marriage. Either his wife died or they got divorced. And my mother comes along and is like, oh, she wanted to be a mom. So she's like, instant family. Awesome. That's kind of how she put it to me. Like, that was great. So there were all these kids that she was tending to. And then she got pregnant with my older half brother, and then things started to dissolve. And she's like, I am not raising my baby in this environment. Mm-hmm. Something to that effect. What we learn later through going through all of her effects is how often he wrote to her and signed the cards, birthday cards. They're mostly greeting cards for his son and to her, her
first husband.
Yeah. Okay. They were kind of like loving,
okay.
Not like you nasty woman for leaving me, it was actually kind of loving. And he sent cards and stuff. I've never really sat down and talked to my half brother, and I need to do that about, his relationship to that situation. How did he feel growing up? So then go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just because when you said that she didn't want to raise her child in that environment, to me, it sounds like my brain just instantly goes to, okay, abusive household, mentally or physically, let's get out. And Maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe they just did not get along.
I think there might have been some substance use, but because I'm not sure, I don't really want to guess.
Right.